Great time maybe just to have a quick break before we go on to our motions. So take a 10-minute break, back at 20 to 4. Are we ready there, Councillor Jackson?
Sorry.
Okay, members, welcome back and welcome those in the public gallery. Members, with 8 notices of motion. So I'll just ask members to try and keep their comments as brief as possible. And our first notice of motion is a joint motion. Councillors Donnelly, Gallagher, Harkin and Raymond Barr move. Councillor Gallagher, are you proposing it?
I'll take the lead on it, yes.
Yeah. And seconder, Councillor Donnelly.
Thank you, Mayor. And select the motion, and I'll take it as read. I'll try and just give some summary. But before doing that, I'd like to welcome the activists to the public gallery to see local government at work. Chair, there's some key elements within this motion around data centres. And there's, over this last while across Ireland, there's been many, many risks that have been identified directly linked to data centres. And some of them is around electricity demand, water sources, climate change, and conflicts with the environment and community infrastructure and its impact. Mayor, when these developments come forward, they require plan permission for any major development, such as data centres. Council assesses applications under the Planning Act with policy statements such as SPPS. This motion is calling on much more for Council to implement further policies, environmental impact assessments on projects that have a significant effect on the environment, e.g. scale, emissions, water use, waste, biodiversity, air quality, climate change. Our planning committee needs policies that are about pre-commencement rather than conditions after the fact. Data centres will not compromise electricity supply to essential users such as homes, schools and hospitals. They need to be around the habitat and biodiversity protections. What flood risks and mitigation are in place, landscape impacts, climate change impact, that this motion is calling for Council formulates a coordinated strategic policies on data centres to ensure confidence is given, decisions align with energy security, climate goals and infrastructure delivery. I call on this Council to support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gallagher. Seconder, wish to address the motion?
Chair, there are many important aspects to this motion, probably too many to cover them all. So I'll curtail my comments to the critical issue of climate change and energy security. But first, I want to make the point that this council and all councils across the 6 counties have been, in my opinion, abandoned by Stormont ministers for infrastructure and the economy. These departments with responsibilities for planning and energy within the current structures are, in my opinion, best placed to develop a coordinated and much needed strategic policy for large-scale emitters of greenhouse gases and consumers of energy like data centres. It is my view both of these ministers have abdicated their public duty to provide local authorities with this strategic policy on data centres that will have major impacts on climate and energy security for the 6 counties and on the island. Climate change doesn't recognise partition. It also will lead to inconsistencies of approach when different councils adopt different approaches in the absence of a strategic policy and oversight. As the motion makes clear, our council has declared a climate emergency and has published a climate change adoption plan, which talks of the need to reduce emissions of greenhouse gases if we are to uphold our public duty in reducing emissions that are accelerating climate change. Data centres are massive emitters of greenhouse gases and consumers of electricity, which contribute to climate change and put pressures on the grid. This council is actively trying to attract data centres to set up shop here. With that comes responsibilities to our citizens and to future generations. This council has approved 4 data centres in recent years, including detailed permission for a major one at Lisahally. As far as I'm aware, this council can't even confirm to the public what scale of a data centre it gave permission. So we don't know what scale of emissions will result or what demand this will place on our electricity grid. But I'm happy to be put right in that if our planning service can point me to where in the application these matters were addressed. After approving that application and the ones before it, officers and some members appear to have adopted the position that climate change and energy security are not material factors that needed to be considered when dealing with data centre applications. That can't be right, but if it is, it needs to change. Adopting a corporate position set out in this motion will ensure this council's words about being serious on climate change are transformed into actions. I would urge members to support this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Donnelly. I have 2 indicated speakers so far. Councillor Mooney.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to the 4 proposers of the motion. I'm just listening to Councillor Gallagher and Councillor Donnelly who spoke there. It's a very extensive motion, and there's so much, and there's a lot to unpick. It's my first impression, and still remains my impression. But when we look at the motion itself, the ask is for a paper to come back, and I think that is the proper route. And I think the SLP group, I think it's the proper route as well. There is so much, as I said, there's so much to unpick. There was mention made of the Planning Act and policies, but there's also the recent LDP, and there's other documents that help the planning application and planning process come to decisions in this. So our view is that this is a motion that would require a detailed paper, given the extent of the questions asked, and obviously we would need to be extensively answered in that respect. So as much information can be given to members. So our basis would be that we support the paper coming back, but obviously on a without prejudice basis, because we need to see what the paper is detailed, and then obviously then we can come to a reasoned informed decision thereof. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Mooney. I have Councillor Jackson.
No good, and I want to thank the 3 members who brought the motion to council. And in relation to the first reading of the motion, there's, when you're reading through it, it is in the interest of this council to ensure that there's no application that is passed that could jeopardise energy security, that could jeopardise the building of social houses, that could impact our schools or our hospitals. It would be madness for any council to put the energy of those vital services at risk in any way. And I think it was Councillor Gallagher that started off by saying that these applications require planning permission, and he's 100% right. And it is only right that all the environmental tests are carried out through the planning process, and they ensure that there isn't demonstrable harm caused to our environment as a result of any application. And data centres should be no different. So there needs to be tests, there needs to be checks and balances in place. But there's another process that needs to go through. In terms of any large scale industrial application also needs to secure a connection offer from Sony. So there's those checks and balances in place. Sony are responsible for ensuring energy security, and I'm been led to believe that there's a rigorous process to ensure that that no application or no connection would put energy security in any part of the island at risk. So there's also that process, and I just wanted to highlight that. But I had a quick look at, and I'm by no means an expert, but I had a very brief glance at Sony's website, and there's a particular section in relation to energy security for the Northwest. And in relation to the Northwest region, there's figures here that there's 1,766 megawatts of energy that's generated, and the demand is 734. So it's more than double the energy that's generated. That in terms of the demand. So when I read it, it doesn't meet with reality in terms of the current situation where we have renewable energy generation that's switched off because the demand isn't here. We can't have that scenario. If we're serious about climate change, we can't have renewable energy switched off and not being used. We need to be generating more renewables, and we need, and it makes sense for that energy to be used in areas where it's generated. But I have a small amendment. We're supportive of the motion. We're supportive of the information being brought back without prejudice. But I do feel that we as a council would benefit from getting more information. And I know the bodies that are responsible have been highlighting, and again, the need for climate change, the need to ensure energy
Time,
security.
councillor, time.
So I would propose at the very end of the motion that in advance of the paper being brought to council, we invite Sony and the energy regulator and officials from the Department of Economy to present to council around energy security and around the impact of data centres. Because I think if we're going to have a policy, it needs to be evidence-based. We need to have all the facts. And I think having a deputation from the experts would be extremely beneficial to us as council. Thanks.
Yes, councillor, can you get that sent through so we can get it up on the screen for councillors to see? That's proposed by councillor Duffy. Proposed, sorry, by councillor Jackson, seconded by councillor Duffy. Members, just wait till we get that up on the screen, and if anybody wants to address the amendment, they can. We have that captured there, councillor Jackson. Writing it up there, so. Does any member wish to address the? Just wait till it comes up. Oh, just wait till it comes up, sorry. Okay, members, you have the amendment, proposed amendment on the screen. Is there anybody who wishes to address the proposed amendment? Alderman Hussey.
Thank you, Mayor, for the opportunity. And with specific regard to the amendment, I'm struggling to understand the rationale or the rationale of speaking to these guys before officers have, done their considerations and brought a report to us, because I would have thought that is something that officers will do in preparing the report. And once we have that report, at that stage, we would, if necessary, be speaking to Sony, Department of the Economy, etc. So it's not the issue of having these people addressing council, it's the timing of it. If the proposer wishes to explain further on that rationale. Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah, Councillor Jackson's indicated.
No, and I suppose, like earlier this month, we've had the benefit of hearing a deputation from NAE. And NAE clearly stated that in order to reduce energy prices, we need to use more. And they, because I think the question was posed by one of the proposers around the impact of data centres. And there was experts from NAE actually stipulated that there would be benefits from local businesses to domestic household users. Energy prices here would reduce if we were using more energy here. And I suppose it's they inform the paper from council. So if there's council officers, I appreciate we've got amazing council officers, but none of them are experts in relation to energy security, and they shouldn't need to be. So let's bring the experts in. Let's listen to them, and that could help inform any paper that could shape a council policy. So let's hear from them, and that could or it may not shape the council policy going forward. So that's the rationale in terms of hearing from them, rather than us set a policy first and then hear from the experts, because it seems the best way is to get as much information in the first instance prior to us developing a policy. Hopefully that answers the question.
Okay, Councillor Jackson. Councillor Harkin on the amendment.
Thank you, Mayor. On the amendment, I'm happy for the amendment to go through as long as it doesn't delay the paper coming forward in an extreme way. So I think there would have to be some agreement as to how long we were going to wait, because if we say, right, we'll pass this now and that's going to delay the paper by 6 months or longer to try and get these 3 entities in here, that'd be too long, in my opinion. I think part of the reason why I think this is a good amendment is because part of the problem, or a big part of the problem, is that our government's unwillingness to actually provide direction on this very matter. So I think there's a difficulty, Alderman Hussey, for our council officers to figure this out, and that's part of the issue, right? So it shouldn't require our council to do this. This should be getting done for us, so that our council officers know, particularly around planning, they know the direction to travel, or they at least know what the questions that they need to be asking are. So it would be very good to hear from all 3 of these entities as soon as we can to inform a paper, and I think that will help council officers and also members to make decisions.
Councillor Mooney.
Thank you, Chair. We have no problem with the amendment. Obviously, the more information, as what I spoke on previously, was that can inform officers and can inform members accordingly. I don't have any problem whenever it's done. If it's done in conjunction, we're all sitting around. I'm sure everybody in here can parse whatever information that they need to and what they hear. My sort of thinking about this when I saw it initially was, is there a certain element like the previous months there about the HMOs? Do we need to reopen the LDP? That's the questions my mind was going on. Under the Parent Act, the Planning Act, is that the way we have to go about this? Because and that's the answers I need to see myself when the paper comes back. There needs to be extensive direction given to members about this, and obviously, I think there's some on next week's planning committee about that, which I was reading during the week. But these are the questions that are circulating in my mind. And obviously, if the parent department in Belfast is not prepared to go down that road, and the motion's asking for this council to do it, there's a certain in Congress sort of development going to have to develop it there, because if we go down this road, the 10 other councils may not do the same thing. So we won't be in unison with any other councils, things like that there. So it could open a can of worms. I'm just thinking and putting things out there, but there needs to be extensive sort of information brought back, and these are the sort of questions that I'm going through my mind. But obviously, we'll wait and see the paper. And I'm relating to Councillor Hargan's point about delay. I think Councillor Jackson's amendment is appropriate, because a lot of the asks are circulated around energy policy and things like this here, which I don't think anybody here is an expert on. So if we can get those bodies down as soon as possible, that'd be great. But the paper can't come along before those questions are sufficiently answered from members. So I'm happy to wait as long as it's I have to, but I don't want any unnecessary delay as well. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Councillor Gallagher on the amendment.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, for letting us in. Mayor, I welcome the amendment, and again, as long as it doesn't delay too long, but I welcome the presentation, and I'll tell you for why. I think it's very important that we have them in here, and whatever they say and when we listen to, then we have the opportunity to fact check some of the stuff that we're being told. And because I would say to you, is on the last presentation by NIE, that if you fact checked it, there was a number of inaccuracies, and that being that the domestic electricity payer, the business electricity payer, is paying for the upgrade for big business to allow the facilitation of data centers to get the supply wired up on the cheap. And there are facts. So it would be good to hear what they have to say, and then we'll do the fact checking.
Okay, members, is there any other member who wants to address the amendment? If not, it's been proposed and seconded. Am I right in thinking there's unanimous support for the amendment? Yeah, members are content enough. Okay, so the amendment has now been added. We'll go back to the substantive motion. And I have, the next speaker was Councillor Raymond Barr.
That's okay, Chair. Councillor Hargan covered what I wanted to say.
Okay, and Councillor Harkin on the substantive motion.
Thank you, Mayor. And again, I wanted to thank the gathering and Save the Moat for the work that they have put into this. My engagements with them have been enlightening, because I've learned a lot about data centres, about energy security, and about broader climate concerns. And I think that there's a lot of questions in the motion that I think are critical in terms of the council's planning procedures. For example, we want to make sure that data centres aren't places where that are helping to facilitate war crimes. In the past, Raytheon came to this city and they said that they were doing no work of a military purpose. Turned out that that wasn't true. They were very much involved in facilitation of war crimes. So we don't want that repeated. And there's obviously questions of climate here. There's questions of energy security. And the frustration for me is that, and I mentioned this in relation to the amendment, that there should be more direction coming from the minister. And in the south, I know that the opposition in the south is demanding these much more direction and guidance from the government when it comes to issues to do with energy security and data centres. So the reason why this is such a concern, right, and it's not to do with the number of data centres right now, it's about what impact they will have in the future if they're not regulated, because deregulation has been a disaster to so many things, and without proper regulation, we will end up in a very dangerous situation, because often those interested in deregulating are interested in maximizing profits at the expense of people, planet, climate, and communities. So one data centre in West Dublin uses the equivalent energy of 200,000 homes. I find that astonishing, that that's the level of consumption of one data centre. And we don't know how much data and how much energy the ones that this council has approved will actually use. So that is a huge concern. We heard somebody in here from NI Electric saying that they were basically encouraging the growth of data centres. That's what I heard, and saying that it will actually lead to a fall in prices for the vast majority of people. I'm not convinced that that's what's going to happen, because if all of our renewable energy ends up going to data centres, we won't see a price increase. We'll actually see a price increase, and we'll also have less and less security. And we also know that data centres end up, rather than cutting emissions, end up contributing to them. So I think all these questions are absolutely vital for this council, but not just for this council, for all the councils right across the north, and indeed right across the island. So I want to commend those that are doing the work on this, and hopefully this motion will pass today. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Harkin, and I have Alderman Kerrigan on the line.
Thank you very much, Chair. And I can see the points. There's a lot of detail in the motion, and again, even in regards to the amendment, I was content enough with the amendment. I did have some concerns, but I do note that it is to come back as a paper. I did have concerns in regards to the LDP, in regards to SPPS is there, and in regards to you know, that potentially this motion could be putting like almost like a predetermination on any application for data centres, whereby every application for any item comes into the planning committee, it all stands on its own merit. And so it did have concerns in that regard. I do note the detail which the proposers have put forward, and as others have spoken, but my own opinion there is, I'm content enough that we'll wait on the paper to come back, but I personally would be more minded just to abstain at this stage. I won't oppose it, but it'll be interesting to get a read and discussion in regards to the paper, and even the meeting that has been suggested by Councillor Jackson as well. So you know, I'm not going to oppose this motion, but at this stage I would be feeling that I would be minded to abstain on it. But that's my view on it at present. Thank you very much, Mayor, for allowing me on.
Thank you, Alderman Kerrigan. Alderman Hussey.
Thank you, Mayor. In brief, looking at the overall proposal, which is quite comprehensive, I'm seeing something in front of us which is not saying we are opposed to data centres. What it is saying is that we are seeking a paper to suggest proper safeguards within legal, financial and regulatory requirements in regard to data centres and their planning applications. And on that basis, we don't have a problem in supporting the motion as it sits. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, members, with no further indicated speakers, so we, with the exception of the DUP who intend to abstain, is that a group
Sorry,
position?
no,
or-
it's, we're going to be for it.
Okay, with the exception of Alderman Kerrigan, are the rest of the members content to support the motion? Yeah, so that motion passes, and I'll pass back to Councillor Gallagher, who originally proposed the motion.
Thank you. And thank you to everyone that supported this motion. This is a very important motion about the future of this city and district, and we need to get it right. Now, we talked a lot about energy security, which is very, very important, but there's other aspects that we shouldn't forget about, and that's particularly around our climate change impact, landscape impact, our habitat, and our wider environment. All very, very important issues that we need to keep to the fore. Members, and bringing this forward, first we decided, and this council passed a motion to write to the minister to have a regional strategic policies that would take us forward. We got a reply to that saying it's up to your local councils to develop policies. So we're saying, as a local council, as ones who have responsibility, we need to devise proper policies that allows our planning committee to move forward with confidence that these measures that have been identified, these risks that have been identified, are dealt with before any approval is given. Not where we see conditions placed on applications and then further down the line asking for those conditions to be dropped. So it's all about being upfront and being confident in the decisions that we make. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Gallagher, which means we move on now to our second motion, which is proposed by Councillor McDaid. Be a seconder there, Councillor Tierney.
Thank you, Mayor, and I'll take it as read. This motion is very basic, but it's a powerful idea. No child should go hungry, and especially no child should be hungry in school. We know that free school meals deliver multiple benefits. The evidence is clear. Better nutrition leads to improved concentration, better academic outcomes, and better long-term economic gains. Free school meals are not just about welfare, they're about an investment in our children's future. And yet we know that around 20% of children living in poverty here aren't eligible for school meals, and it's even higher here in our own district of 24% of people living in relative poverty. That means that more than 1 in 5 children here aren't entitled to free school meals because they're marked out because of an eligibility system that doesn't reflect the real cost of living. Hunger doesn't just disappear because a family earns just above the threshold. I also just wanted to highlight that in other jurisdictions across these islands, they're expanding free school meals to everybody. And this is because they recognise the social and economic benefits of the investment. Our children shouldn't be left behind just because they live in the north. And stopping holiday hunger payments was not just short-sighted, it was cruel. The payments provide vital support to low-income families during holidays, the very time when costs of everything rises and school meals are unavailable. I know in my house with 3 children, our weekly shopping bill significantly increases during school holidays. Removing this support has just added to the pressures of people already struggling. So that's why this motion just calls for a significant expansion of eligibility, with the ambition of moving towards universal free school meals over time. Universal provision will remove the stigma, ensuring that no child is left out or embarrassed, and it guarantees that every pupil can focus on learning rather than their bellies rumbling with hunger. And finally, I'm just asking that we write to the Minister of Education, urging him to work with the Minister of Finance to publish a funded plan with clear timelines and actions to extend the free school meals to all children by 2030. If this is a practical, fair and forward-looking proposal, and I just urge all members to support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McDaid. Councillor Tierney, do you want to address the motion? No. Any other indicated speakers? Alderman Montgomery.
Thank you, Mayor, and I just want to thank Councillor McDaid for bringing this motion forward. Estimated 20% of children living in poverty not eligible for school meals is far too many, and I can see this increasing due to the increase of prices that has went up now at the start of January. The existing system is failing to reach many of those who need the support the most. We know school meals improve children's nutrition, concentration and attendance at school, and this may be their only hot meal of the day. A universal approach ensures no child falls through the cracks and provides more of an efficient system of support. Calling on the Education and Finance Minister to publish a funded plan by 2030 is a very reasonable ask. It's achievable and a necessary goal, and one that represents the investment of our children and their future. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Middleton. Next indicated speaker is Alderman Cook.
Thanks, Mayor, for letting me in, and thanks to Councillor McDaid for bringing this motion forward. We as a party fully support this motion. Free school meals are a proven and effective way to support children's health and well-being as well as their educational attainment. They help to reduce hunger, improve concentration and behaviour, ease that financial pressure on families, and most importantly, tackling child poverty and inequality. It's wholly unacceptable that around 20% of our children living in poverty fall out of the eligibility catchment for free school meals. No child should miss out on their school meal because of a certain threshold that doesn't reflect the real cost of living or that level of need faced by families. So we therefore agree that eligibility for free school meals must be expanded as a matter of urgency. And ideally, we would like to see a fully funded plan that sets out a clear pathway towards the ultimate goal of universal free school meals for all children. So thanks again, Mayor, for letting me in, and thanks, Councillor McDade.
Thank you, Alderman Cook. Councillor Harkin.
Thank you, Mayor, for letting me in, and thank you to Councillor McDade for bringing this excellent and very, very timely motion. Timely because the price of school meals, as we all know, has went up unacceptably for far too many families, and in many places the price of school meals is going down, and more children are getting access to a free school day. So we are actually going in the wrong direction, and there are far too many children in our district and across the north who are going to school hungry. It's an absolute disgrace, and it means that they can't learn properly, and it means they're struggling in school. And I think that is just an awful situation. The call for universal free school meals has been one that the trade union movement has advocated for and campaigned for and called on Stormont to implement. The threshold, as we know, for access to free school meals right now is far too high. Many families who should be getting free school meals are denied it. And we know that a lot of families who are not in receipt of free school meals are struggling with all sorts of bills. They're struggling to pay their rent. They're struggling with car insurance. They're struggling to pay their mortgages. And this has meant that more and more children are actually are hungry at school. So government has the levers to actually do something about this. And that's what this motion calls on. We have set out in our Pathways Out of Poverty council plan that we are advocating and campaigning for a free school day. This is very much part of that. Free school meals is very much part of a free school day. If we could win free school meals today, that would be a massive victory, and it would be a game changer for a lot of children and a lot of families right across the north. So we absolutely support this motion, and we hope that it passes it today.
Thank you, Councillor Harkin. Councillor McGinley.
Mayor, and thank you to Catherine for bringing the motion forward. We're fully supportive of it. Sinn Féin have been consistently calling for an extension to free school meals and on an all-in basis, because the reality is that poverty doesn't stop at the border. Danny Baker, MLA, he's brought forward a bill to tackle holiday hunger. Padraig Delargy has been raising in the Assembly the issue of the rising cost of school meals. Darren O'Rourke, TD, has been calling out the government's execution of their school meals programme in the south, so it is an issue that stretches the length and breadth of this island. School meals and access to school meals for our children can mean the difference between a child being able to learn or a child going hungry, and that's just wrong. I know the Council's Anti-Poverty Working Group has been working with the Anti-Poverty Network, and the topic of the last few meetings there, from speaking with Councillor Hutton, has been around free school meals and the issues that causes for families. Local schools also have been showing some leadership. I know that in Craig and Holy Child's, through fundraising they do throughout the year, provide free school meals for all children in the month of January. So it shows that it can be done. So I do think that any work that can be done to tackle this issue so that our children aren't going hungry in school should be welcomed, and the action needs to be taken. So we're fully in support of the motion.
Thank you, Councillor McGinley. Our next indicated speaker is Councillor Gallagher.
Thank you, Mayor Flitson, and thank you to Councillor McDade for this motion. And I will be supporting this motion. Mayor, I've lived and worked in the Spring Hill area of Strabane for 30 odd years. One of the highest areas of child poverty. And during those 30 years, I've seen a lot of kids growing up and leaving school with no education at all, and it becomes a revolving cycle that go on benefits, get into trouble, live negative lifestyle because they've grown up in poverty. And it has been clearly identified that one of the ways out of poverty is education. And if you're going to school hungry and you're remaining hungry, you're not getting an education. And you will just continue and continue of a cycle of poverty. If we invest in our school children and they get an education, they won't come back to the system that causes a further burden. So any investment at this end will pay dividends. And that's what we need to be doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gallagher. Alderman Hussey.
Thank you, Mayor, and in supporting the motion and thanking Councillor McDade for bringing the motion forward, I'm looking at it in a slightly different way than the nutritional value of the school meal being available, vis-a-vis the social impact that such a provision can have. I'm one who grew up with the free meal ticket that we got. And I noticed, particularly when I went to grammar school, coming from in the main different social background than many of those in grammar school, there was almost a disdain on those who were getting free school meals. And then when I moved on to teaching as a form teacher at the beginning of the week, distributing the different coloured tickets and noticing that there are many deserving families who wouldn't take their allocation of a school meal because they felt it some way demeaned them when they were perfectly entitled to receive that. So the idea of universal provision of a meal to a child at school is totally the right way to go, and not to be demeaning any student within any school going forward. So thanks to Councillor McDade for the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. Councillor Cusick.
Thank you, Mayor, and Alderman Hussey has just put me to the post with the point I wanted to make there. Thank you, Catherine, for bringing this motion, very important motion forward, and everybody's discussed the importance of it. But as Councillor or Alderman Hussey has mentioned there, it's that element of being accessible to all and being invisibly accessible to all, because I'm old enough to remember going to primary school and we had the pink and white tickets. And if you were pink, you got free school meals. If you were white, you could afford to pay for your meals. And the stigma that incurred on children, to the degree that the children didn't go and collect their free school meal tickets and went hungry because they didn't want to be singled out as, oh, you get free meals. And children can be cruel. There's no two ways about it. So I think that's a very important element. And as others have said, the importance of having a nutritious meal during the day, maybe your only meal during the day, to your concentration, to your ability to learn, to develop. And you know, I saw something in Gogglebox the other day at one of my favourite programmes, and well, it's so entertaining. There's also quite, you know, important political and social elements and commentary that they make. And it was at a school in France, and what they were cooking for the children, and it was absolutely amazing. You know, the nutritional value, it was vegetables, that, you know, they were actually teaching them about food, about respect for food, and not one of those children turned their noses up and they ate everything put in front of them because they were enjoying what was being put in front of them. And there was an agreement that, you know, eating together and being cooked for in a respectful way was an appreciation of them as young adults and young individuals. So again, it's probably not really much to do with the motion, but I found it very, very interesting, very entertainment. And if we teach children about the importance of food and we're able to give them good food, then we're on the right path. So thank you, Catherine, for that.
Thank you, Councillor Cusick. And last but not least, Councillor Donnelly.
I'd like to thank Councillor McDade for this motion. Excellent motion, no brainer. But why is it in here? Why are we even talking about this? A lot of stuff that I was going to say has been said nearly word for word across the political divide in here. You know, the performance of a child, the attendance of a child, the behaviour of a child. Why are we having this discussion? It shows the dysfunctional nature of a political system that, you know, the children, and it's cliche, they're the future. So why are we not investing in them? And we live in a country or in a state that has many disadvantages. And as Councillor Gallagher says, that education is it's a nice card for them. That if they don't get a job here, they can get on a plane. And I don't like saying that, but that is the reality. And no child should be hindered at this very important stage of the development. You know, we've seen issues over transport, we've seen issues over uniform, we've seen issues stationery, we see teachers working in porta cabins that young people's grandparents were educated in, and I'm talking about Holy Childs, and it's an excellent school, and all credit the principal there. In January, they raised money to give every single child, irrespective of family income, a free school meal, and she is able to tell you that the marked increase in attendance, behaviour and performance of children. But why are we sitting in here discussing this? You know, it beggars belief sometimes that we're all agreed. We've different political opinions, ideologies, but I haven't heard anybody arguing, no, they shouldn't be getting it. So why is it not happening? You know, and it's up to the political systems that are charged with running either states or countries to ensure that we invest in children, because if they don't, then they're open to the charge that they don't care. So, Councillor McDade, very important, and I'm glad that the message coming out of here is a single unitary message, and I hope that those with responsibility listen, and that these children are entitled to a free school meal.
Thank you, Councillor Donnelly. Members have no further indicated speakers. So the motion has been proposed and seconded, and I'm sensing that there's unanimous support for the motion in the chamber. So I'm going to say that is passed and pass back to Councillor McDade to sum up.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to everyone who has supported it. I suppose just to pick up on a couple of things, what Alderman Hussey and Councillor Cusack have said there around that kind of social impact. I remember the tickets too, and people selling the tickets and doing everything else. You know, like I remember all that happening, and I do think that making it universal definitely takes away that kind of stigma and embarrassment that people maybe feel around getting free school meals. And I think what Councillor Gallagher, actually what everyone has said around the kind of the long-term benefits of every child having a warm school meal and being able to concentrate and learn better and have better outcomes will impact and have a positive impact on society in the future. I've spoken on here before about Breakfast Club in my children's school, and you know, every now and again through fundraising there might be a week free, and the difference in how many people attend in those free weeks is unbelievable. So my kids go every morning, and it's 65p a day, and there's the same people there every day, and yet whenever there's a free week, everyone's there, because there's people out there who can't afford 65p a day, that like they are literally counting their pennies. So I think it's really important that we do everything we can as a society to make sure that every child does get a warm meal, because there's children out there that literally all they get throughout the school day is maybe a packet of crisps, a packet of Monster Munch and a chocolate bar thrown into a lunchbox, and that's to get them through. How do we expect them to sit there and concentrate and learn and behave if that's all they have in their bellies? And I do want to say too, I don't think this is the fault of the parents, because the cost of living is putting so much pressure on people. So if we were able to provide a hot school meal to every child, it won't just improve their own outcomes, but it does take a bit of pressure off parents as well, of having to provide a nutritious lunch or having to pay for a school dinner. But thank you very much for supporting the motion, and hopefully this will move forward through the executive. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor McDade. We'll move on then, members, to our third motion, notice of motion. And that's from councillor Riley.
Thank you, Mayor.
Seconded by councillor Tierney.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. I'll take the motion as read, and thanks to Councillor Tierney for seconding it. Mayor, I've heard from many people ahead of today's debate, all sharing similar stories of long waits, crowded spaces with a frustrating lack of amenities, but all of those stories are underpinned by supportive recognition and commentary of the staff that are working in such conditions. I want to thank all those who've reached out to record their experiences to me, but indeed many of those people have posted their own stories online in the past before my motion was tabled. Not just across this council district, but right across the northwest. People have been visiting Altnagelvin now for over 40 years, a building that the current health minister has indicated was initially designed for around 35,000 people per year, but now sees around double that figure. I welcome that the start last month of improvement works at the hospital for more toilets, more seats, better showers and more food options, but a longer term solution is needed. This motion flows from the Western Trust deputation to this chamber at the end of last year and is complemented by the multi-year budget allocation by the executive to the Department of Health at the start of this month. Elected representatives in this chamber and beyond will want to know when the business case for the new emergency department at Altnagelvin will be approved and whether the capital budget allocated to Minister Nesbitt is sufficient to deliver this project. We also recognise that a new emergency department will allow the Department of Health to think about the services currently provided at an A&E setting and to see any potential improvements for care to be given to vulnerable patients in a more suitable arena. That's why I think it would be beneficial to hear from the department on their vision for the future of emergency care at Altnagelvin and how that can blend in with the department's recent consultation on the neighbourhood model of care. We know that patient flow in any hospital is crucial to freeing up beds, which in turn frees up ambulances to get back out into the community, and it saves the departmental finances in the long run, as care in the community is better for the patient and more cost effective for the system. That's why it's useful to hear the Minister already having replied to my SDLP colleague Mark A. Sturkin, MLA, through Assembly questions around the lack of care home beds in the Western Trust area. We need capital investment in the emergency department, but we also need support to provide more care in the community settings as well. So the motion, Mayor, deals with a range of those issues. I hope that it can achieve support from across the chamber, because not just in our council district, in Fermanagh, Omagh Council, in Causeway Coast and Glens Council, and indeed in Donegal and across the northwest of this island, Altnagelvin provides a service to many, many citizens. And we know that there has been difficulties with the hospital in the SWA, in the southern part of the Western Trust area, and indeed we've heard many compelling stories about the difficulties faced at Altnagelvin by people from other parts of the Western Trust who travel to Altnagelvin and have to wait long times with a long journey on a very difficult A5 road. At the moment. So that's why, Mayor, I'm calling on people to support the motion. Chamber, thank you.
Councillor Barr, Jason Barr, your mic's open online. If you'd like to turn off your mic, please. Councillor Jason Barr.
Here, Chaplain.
We've turned off Radio Strabane there. So. Thank you, Martin. And Councillor Duffy.
Gurmugget, Vera, and Gurmugget to Councillor Riley for bringing this motion back. And it's good to know that the SDLP are going to be supporting the multi-year budget. So that's good news. Look, I brought this same motion last year. Public services across the north have been absolutely battered by years of British government cuts and austerity, and nowhere is that more obvious than in our health service. Staff shortages, endless waiting lists, people unable to get a GP or a dentist, Families are at breaking point, and nowhere shows that pressure more than Galvin's emergency department. And that's why Sinn Féin has been putting a focus on this, and that's why Padraig Delargy MLA has been consistently meeting with the Minister and the Trust, and that's why I brought the motion last year. This isn't about a winter surge anymore. This is every day, it's every week, it's all year round. We now have a phrase that none of us ever wanted to hear in a modern health service, and that is around corridor care. Patients on trolleys, no privacy, no dignity, older people waiting 20+ hours in chairs, children stuck for hours, people in mental health crisis with nowhere safe or separate to go. Families receiving devastating news without even a private room. That's just not pressure, that's failure. Ambulances are delayed outside for hours, staff are burnt out, facing abuse, they're exhausted, yet they still show up every day and do their absolute best. They deserve better, and so do our patients. The business case for the new fit for purpose ED needs to be prioritised. We know the need, we know the demand, and we know the failures. Padraig Delargy MLA has been relentless in the Assembly, pushing this at every opportunity. But now we need action. So we're asking Minister Mike Nesbitt directly, what is the update and when will this be prioritised? Because the North West can't be kept waiting. Yes, we do need a new build, but we know agreement will not solve our issues overnight. So in the meantime, we do have immediate steps that we could take right now to ease some of the existing pressures. We need an increase in the emergency beds in A&E. We need an increase in inpatient beds right across Galvin, and we need to expand domiciliary care so people can be discharged safely and free up capacity within the hospital. These are the practical actions. These are doable now. And we have fought for this region before. We have fought for our cancer centre, our airport and our university, and we have won those battles. But we cannot accept second best healthcare. So to the staff, we want to send a message that we stand with you, and to the patients that we hear you. And we will keep fighting until the people of Derry and the North West get the healthcare that we deserve, because dignity in healthcare isn't optional, it's a right. So, Gurmugget, Avira.
Good, Councillor Duffy. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor, and thanks to Martin for bringing this motion forward. Unfortunately, I've had the experience firsthand of the E&D department in Galvin recently with my mother, who was admitted in with a suspected stroke. What we were faced with was, it was something that you would see in a third world country, to be honest with you. She was taken into the resus department. There was only one cubicle available. She was taken in, and I have to say that the doctors and nurses was exemplary. But when she was actually getting her test done to confirm a diagnosis of what was going on, there was another patient brought in with a suspected stroke, and the only available room that they had for the stroke trauma team was that one room. So my mum was wheeled out of the bed into the corridor, and another person was being brought in order to receive the treatment for a suspected stroke. Now, that was fine, do you know what I mean? Because like everybody needs treatment, and it has to be at the point of need. But then they couldn't find a bed for the next person who was getting tested for the stroke. So they had to come out and ask my mum to sit in a chair while they used the bed for the next patient in order to run the test. Now, there was patients everywhere within the corridor, and they had literally flimsy kind of screens around all of these people. I sat in that ED department, and I was listening to other people's medical history. I was listening to their personal information. And when my mum was put into the corridor, she was put in front of a store cupboard. And every 5-10 minutes, somebody would come to get into the store. So they would have to move her from the store, and then they put her in front of the toilet. And then somebody wanted to use the toilet, so they had to put her back in front of the store. Now, I have to say that the staff were professional. They never flapped or anything, despite the conditions that they were working in that hospital. But I just want to reiterate that even if the money came forward for the new ED department tomorrow, it is going to take about 4 or 5 years in order for that to be built and implemented. So I think we're in crisis now, and there's a lot of things that the trusts need to be looking at. Some of them have already been mentioned. The domiciliary care, the fact that SWA is closed and people are travelling from Enniskillen to Altnagavin and blocking up. We've talked about dentists, and we've talked about the appointments in the GP system, which people are now basically they can't get an appointment with a doctor, so they just go to E&D. And I'll give you another example. A good friend of mine who's in my women's group, her son came back from holiday in Liverpool. He was sick and but he had a dose or whatever, and he made a conscious decision that he wouldn't go to A&E because he would have had to sit for days. My friend, she couldn't contact her son 2 Sundays ago, and he was found dead on his sofa with pneumonia and sepsis. A 43-year-old fella. So to say our system is failing us is an understatement. People are dying. People are dying while we're sitting in here because they have no access to emergency care, or they have an unwillingness to go into the ED department because of the situation that they're faced with there. I've seen children sitting there for days, and like families are having to feed their loved ones in the corridors. It is, I can't emphasize enough, it is like a third world country. It's not, it's not synopsis to, how we should be treating our elderly or our citizens. But I have to say, they do a sterling job. They're working under serious pressure, and they're doing everything that they can, but unfortunately our system is failing them. So I wholeheartedly agree. We need to be putting pressure on to get this money. The ED department is really, really needed. And we've also talked about the vulnerable, about the mental health and whatever. Like there's policemen running around, the corridors up there, do you know what I mean, after people. It's just not a nice environment. So thank you very much, Martin, for bringing this forward. And I can't stress enough that the urgency of getting some kind of resolution to the issue that we have in Altnagavin A&E at the minute. But thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. And I have Alderman Guy online.
Thank you, Mayor, for letting me in. I'm just sitting here listening to all the previous speakers and, totally agree with them. Totally agree. That's why the Ulster Unionist Party are happy to support this motion here. And the Health Minister himself, Mike Nesbitt, has agreed and stated that Altnagavin A&E has outgrown its current use. It's not fit for purpose. He agrees, and he says that himself, and it needs modernised. And it needs improved so that the staff that work there can work in better conditions as well, because it's all about the staff morale is important, and they're getting it beat up. We see it all the time. I myself have spent twice before Christmas with my own mother, and it's a case now of it's not hours you're going in for anymore. It's not the waiting times 6 hours, 8 hours, 10 hours. It's days. And I sat in casualty for 4 days with my mother before she thankfully got a bed. And I know people have sat longer than that there. And I agree with previous speakers that the staff are second to none. They're excellent. They never complain. They just get on with it. But the system is under severe pressure. And it is care packages or recuperation homes again, where a lot of the NHS homes were cut, were done away with, and we're seeing the impact of that now. It's been going on for years. It hasn't even. It's not as if it's suddenly become a problem. since care packages were put in place, it was evident that there wasn't enough for them. It's been going on for years. It has a knock-on effect, bed space in the hospital, bed space in A&E, ambulance turnaround times, and of course then waiting times for the patients when they go into A&E. But thankfully, the Minister knows that there is a problem there. He is working with the Western Trust for a programme of upgraded works to the hospital, and not just A&E itself. But I couldn't agree with the previous speaker there, or can agree with the previous speaker whenever she says about this will probably take 4 or 5 years, even when it gets to go ahead. It needs done now, because it's a mess up there. It is, and I'm not just saying that. We've all been there, so it's nothing new to any of us here. We've all sat with an elderly relative. But listen, I support the fact that Councillor Riley has brought this forward, because we need somewhere better that will make the staff and visitor experience a whole lot better, because it has to be a better patient experience. It has to be improve staff morale, but it has to improve patient dignity, because at the minute, there's that many elderly people sitting in corridors, and if they're lucky to actually get a bed, some of them could be in a chair. When I was up, there was people lying on the floor and everything, because there was no chairs, there was no beds available. And the dignity just goes out the window. So it does. And it has to change. But, you know, we talked there about, obviously, we're writing to the Minister and looking for capital within the capital investment plan. And basically, but the Minister knows himself that with agreed funding allocation in the years ahead, that some scepticism will unfortunately remain. But there is pressures on Stormont finding money. We know that across all departments. But something has to move in this, because your health is your wealth. And at the minute, we're all very poorly because of it. Thanks, Mayor.
Thanks, Darren. And Councillor Harkin.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Riley, for bringing this motion. I think the case for investment into the Elton Galvin Emergency Department has been made. It's clear that it is needed, and I think you're absolutely right. And this is the thrust of your motion, that now it needs to be funded. And we can't be in a situation where we know there's need and then there's not a plan for funding. So I think anything that this council can do to make the case that the funding needs to be delivered on right now, that's what we should be doing, because this is our district, and these are people who depend on the health service, and their experience there should be positive, and often it isn't right now. And that's true for patients, and it's also true for the workers who are run off their feet. So fully back the motion, and I hope that it passes today. I do want to say something about funding, because there is one of the things that's been discussed recently is the issue of the amount of money that is being spent on private healthcare. Private healthcare profits right now are absolutely going through the roof. And I've been reading the business press and the financial press, and there's more and more companies right now who are trying to, in their words, crack the healthcare industry here in the north of Ireland. So Jerry Carroll, my colleague in Stormont for People Before Profit, has proposed that the 300 million that was spent over the last 5 years in private healthcare companies, that has to come to an end. And Unison right now are leading the charge and backing up this call. And what's happening is, and this is, if you go to the Unison website right now or the Facebook page, Unison make it very, very clear that what's happening is, and this is being allowed by Stormont and the Stormont executive over many, many years, that private companies are cherry picking which services they're going to actually focus on. And what they're doing is they're targeting areas where they believe that there's more money. So what they're doing is they're draining out money from the health service, taking away money that should be spent on investment in the Elton Galvin and the emergency department, and they're putting it into their bank accounts. So there's executive parties here. So I know that you all support an upgrade of Elton Galvin and want to see the emergency department invested in. But if Stormont continues to allow private companies to ravage our health service, it's going to get worse. And that's why Unison right now are calling for an end to this. So we can't commit to more funding for the health service and then allow hundreds and hundreds of millions to be sucked out by private healthcare companies. That's why Altnagalvin is in the state that it's in, because this has been going on for years, and we need it to be halted. So fully support the motion today. I hope that the executive finds the money to upgrade and resolve the issues at Altnagalvin. But there's a bigger issue here about the privatisation of our health service. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Harkin. I've no other indicated speakers, members, so I'm sensing a unanimous support for the motion. Are members content that the motion is passed? Yeah, okay. Go back to Councillor Riley. So
Thanks, Mayor, for bringing me back in. And can I start by thanking everybody who contributed constructively this afternoon to the debate, including personal testimony, which isn't always easy to share. So thanks to everybody who has taken the time to speak on this. And finally, I want to thank those that have shared with me their own experiences ahead of today's debate, and the staff who at all times in all the commentary, both in this debate and those that have reached out to me ahead of the debate, the staff constantly are referred to for doing wonderful work in really testing conditions. So I want to echo the point again about how valuable the staff are that are working there in conditions that don't in any way reflect the good work that they provide. Thank you, Mayor.
thank you, Councillor Riley. So members, we'll move on to the fourth motion, and just remind members that if you respond to a motion, it's a minute that you're allocated. So Councillor Devine, if you want to move your motion, be a seconder there. Councillor O'Farrell, are you seconding it? Yeah. Go ahead, Councillor Devine.
Vera, I take the motion as read. In 2022, the Ramsat feasibility study identified Kielder Forest as having clear development potential, particularly in the areas of outdoor recreation, health and wellbeing, and rural regeneration. Crucially, it's also identified as a sensitive and complex environment, meaning that any future development must be carefully planned and appropriate to the landscape there. The regeneration of Kielder Forest has been identified as a key outcome within the Derg Local Growth Plan. So this motion asks Council now to take the next step by carrying out a more detailed assessment of its wider regeneration potential. Kielder Forest is located within the Glenderg ward of the Derg DEA, an area that falls within the top 15% most deprived areas in the north, with ongoing challenges around employment and economic opportunity. Regeneration of the forest has the potential to make a real and tangible difference in terms of revitalisation, job creation, tourism growth and wider business development. If we as a council are serious about tackling rural disadvantage, then this is just the type of opportunity that we should be exploring. The forest itself is a 418-hectare site, which has already 4 established walking trails and interpretation panels. It has recognised international connections with the International Appalachian Trail, which goes through the forest, and it also has links with pilgrim routes to one of Ireland's most significant pilgrim destinations, St Patrick's Purgatory in Lough Derg, reinforcing its cultural and tourism significance and potential. The forest is located within a unique cross-border position, which creates a strong opportunity to leverage cross-border funding that supports balanced regional development as well as economic, social and environmental benefits for the region. It's designated as a nature reserve of regional and national importance, offering potential for outdoor learning and youth programmes that deliver long-term social value. There's also scope for well-managed cycling and mountain bike trails that would complement existing uses and enhance the overall visitor experience there. We know that nature-based recreation and forest tourism are growing drivers of rural economic activity across the north and across this whole island, supporting local employment, tourism spend and small businesses. This type of investment directly supports key identified objectives for our council around inclusive economic growth, improved health and well-being, reduced health inequalities and sustainable placemaking. So today, members, I would ask for your support so that Council can now begin work to explore the regeneration potential of Keeler Forest and assess the potential benefits for our local rural area and the wider Northwest region.
Thank you, councillor. Does your seconder want to add anything?
Fi Mitchell Lords, Gurmila Magara, Avera. Thank you very much, Mayor, for letting me in. But no, I would appeal to everybody to support this. We were talking earlier on there about rural areas and all the rest, and I think it's important that our council support this motion. Gurmila Magara.
Good, Anton. Alderman Hussey.
Thank you, Chair. Just to very briefly support the motion and thank Councillor Devine for bringing it. Some time ago, I remember meetings being held with regard to utilisation of forests, for example, for mountain biking and such like things, which is being done in other places. The underutilisation of forests and like bodies is well known, and something that, this is a valuable asset that can be utilised in our council area, and in particular in the electoral area that we both represent. And it has to be utilised to its full. At the same time, being mindful that overutilisation of some of our natural facilities is sometimes a danger that can occur. But, to get to that stage, you actually have to start utilising the facilities that are available. And we're talking, whether people know it or not, about one of the largest forests in Europe, in Keeler Forest. And it's in our council area, bordering on into Donegal, as Councillor Devine has rightly outlined, with the linkages to other tourist potentials that exist. So supporting the motion. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Alderman. And I have Alderman Kerrigan online.
Thank you, Mayor, for allowing me in. And we're more than content to support the motion as brought forward by Councillor Devine. It is one of those natural resources there, and it's sitting there, and it's making use of it. And as I say, it's over 1,000 acres of forestry in there. There's a great potential with it, but it has to be done sensitively. So, as I say, we have no problem at all supporting the motion, and hopefully, as I say, it will bring a bit more tourism into our end and might help. It would be another asset that the like of some of those tourist operators could promote in the rural area. So more than content to support it. Thank you very much, Mayor.
Thank you, Alderman. Councillor Cusick.
Thank you, Mayor. And yet again, somebody's coming with my points. This is the type of project the council should be behind, especially given the arguments that we had about Visit Derry and our area, not the whole area and district, getting significant attention and promotion and marketing. If we're wanting to market and promote and bring tourism, both externally and internally, then we need something to offer them. And there's a big buzz with regards now as to rural exploration, mountain biking, walking, and indeed the actual health and well-being of the people here, the constituents, our ratepayers. So I think this is an ideal opportunity to focus on something on the doorstep within Tyrone, within the district, within rural, that we can promote, we can make the most of, again, with respect to nature. And I'm fully behind it, and thank you for bringing the motion forward.
Thank you, Councillor Cusack. I have no further indicated speakers. And again, I'm sensing that...
Mayor, apologies. I do actually have my hand up there online. Councillor Boyle.
Go ahead, Councillor Boyle.
Mayor, thanks for letting me in. And look, I will keep it short because an awful lot of what I would have said has been said anyway. But first off, to thank Councillor Devine, and I do agree with all of the other speakers as well. And it probably sounds a little bit odd that city boy like me is talking about country parks, but and forests. But over the years I've had great opportunity to explore them, and I do see the value of them. So, on behalf of my own party and the SDLP, we're fully supportive of the ask that is in front of us. I think it's obvious that it's an important piece of work that we can carry out as a council. It's a good ask. It's something that addresses future health and well-being of our citizens. I think we saw the importance of spaces like this, particularly during the COVID pandemic. So it really does make sense, and it makes sense that we appreciate the resource that we have in Killeater. I've never had the pleasure of visiting, but of course that doesn't rule it out in the future. It's obvious that these spaces can and should be developed further in a positive way for communities. And I think of my own experience of visiting places like Gorge and Glen, which I enjoy immensely, and the importance that places like that have for families in particular. So look forward to the papers coming back, look forward to being able to support whatever proposals we might have as a council, Mayor. So again, just to again thank Councillor Devine for bringing this one forward to us for consideration, and the SDLP, of course, as you could probably read from what I'm saying, are supportive of the idea.
Thank you, Councillor Boyle. Members, as I say, and sensing unanimous support for that, so we'll take that as passed and hand back to Councillor Devine to sum up.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm not going to hold people back. Just to say thank you for supporting the motion. I look forward to the report coming back, and I look forward to welcoming a former mayor down to the official opening of Killeater Forest at some stage in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Devine. Motion 5 then is to be moved by Councillor Norris, and I need a seconder, please. Councillor Mooney, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll keep this quite short. First of all, I'll take the motion as read. I'll point out something first of all. It was pointed out to me it wrote as the largest illegal dump. It's meant to read one of the largest illegal dumps, but that's just typo. Look, there's nobody in this council that doesn't know about my boy dump. Everybody's well aware of it. I've no doubt out of the 5 Faughan councillors, like myself, we're being phoned every week about my boy dump, about activities up at it, about various things about it. And to me, being from Strathfoyle, and we're aware of it. I'm a resident of Eglinton, I'm very well aware of it. And I've looked at various things around us, and I can only come up with a solution of, like, there's a DARA team up there. They're working very hard. They're doing fantastic work. But every week they come across things. The gates have been broken. There's stuff in. There's a lorry load of tyres have been left. All various things. But the reality is, to me, we're getting to a stage now where DARA, the minister, needs to take responsibility for the site. He needs to take over the site. He needs to make it, he stop any unauthorised access, and he needs to protect the site. Put up fencing, put up CCTV, just take control of the site. And it's as simple as that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Norris. Would your seconder like to comment? No. Okay then, I have Alderman McCormick.
Thank you, Mayor, and I just want to thank Councillor Norris for bringing this forward. My boy site represents the most serious environmental and public safety issues that we face. While I acknowledge the work of being undertaken by DARA, the continued illegal access, especially cars rallying about and fly tipping at the site, is deeply concerning. I fully support this motion, but this issue has gone on for far too long, and a decisive action is now required. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. And Alderman Middleton.
Thank you, Mayor, for letting me in, and thank you, Councillor Norris, for bringing this motion forward today. We in the DUP will be giving it our full support. There is no doubt that my boy should always be extremely high on our priority list as a council, and not just for those of us who represent the Faughan. This is a district-wide issue. We do, of course, recognise the work that DARA has done thus far. However, we need to see urgent funding and action now. We need to see site remediation moving. I agree with everything that has been said thus far, and we fully support all and any requested mitigations which are in the best interest of site and person health and safety. It's imperative that we acknowledge that my boy is a major issue. We have our local residents to think of who are in the vicinity of the site, but we also have our environment and our ecology and our water to think of. And whilst there hasn't been a major water incident as yet, who's to know when that could happen? We need to see action, robust action, and urgently. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. I next have indicated Councillor Harkin.
Thank you, Mayor, for letting me in, and thank you to Councillor Norris for bringing forward this important motion. I think that the issue of my boy dump is of concern to every single member of this council, because it is one of the biggest scandals that exists on the island of Ireland, indeed in Europe. That's the size of this illegal dump. So, but I can understand why it's of a pressing concern of people who live immediately around it. But it does, if it's not dealt with, it will threaten our water supply for the city, and it already is a threat to the River Faughan and to the land all around that area, with unknown consequences for people's health that live nearby. Now, I do find it absolutely astonishing that this site is not secure. I mean, it's a crime site, but journalists have been able to wander in there and lift out documents that are actually part of the evidence, and we're able to write articles in the Belfast Telegraph. There was nobody there, no oversight. It's a completely toxic and dangerous site for anyone that was venturing in there. And the fact that it hasn't been secured is just unbelievable. So I agree with the thrust of this motion. It should be fully secured. When it's not actually secured, it leads people to develop suspicions about what government is up to. Why wouldn't you want the buildings that have all the documents about what was brought into the site legally and illegally over many, many years? Why wouldn't that have been protected? So I think the lack of action in terms of securing the site leads people to develop more suspicions that nobody cares and that it's a free-for-all. So I think that this is a proposal that the Minister needs to act on.
Thank you, Councillor Harkin. Councillor Donnelly.
Chair, and I'd like to thank Councillor Norris for keeping this on the agenda, because I think it's one of the biggest issues that we're facing. Now, I do have some issues with the content of the motion and possibly some clarifications, but it's obvious that it's not secure and it's not being dealt with in a proper context. And, you know, I think when we look at, there's another huge dump in Europe called the Triangle of Death in Campania in Italy, where studies using data collected from screenings shows that there's elevated cases of leukemia, lymphoma, and liver cancer, and we don't effectively know what is in this dump. So it should be secured and it should be remediated. And Councillor Norris has been to the forefront and is a genuine activist. But Chair, I have a number of issues or concerns regarding the motion. And when it talks about, you know, illegal activities, yeah, fly tipping, it's illegal. But Chair, it's far from clear that the site is being accessed illegally for drifting events, which are effectively racing wrecked cars. There is papers in public domain suggest that a group known as the Troublemakers Car Club is leasing the former City Waste site from the current owner, who is in fact in prison. And these papers also show that NIEA is aware of this lease and has written seeking to agree some form of joint access with the Troublemakers. Council planners should maybe advise whether the sporadic drifting events require planning permission. I don't know, but it's maybe something that should be looked at. We talks about earmarking funding allocated for the remediation of the site. It's not within the executive's draft multi-year budget, nor has the Maboy remediation made the programme for government, which suggests, to me, it suggests it's not a priority for Stormont. The talks about vesting, and no issue with vesting, but vesting brings with it the prospect of compensation for the landowner, you know, out of the public purse. One argument that will be put forward is that the site is contaminated and therefore of a negative value, so no compensation should be paid. However, on the other hand, it could be argued by the owner of the former city industrial waste site has demonstrated by leasing the land that there is some monetary value, and that will be denied to him through vesting. So therefore, could possibly be open to a compensation claim, and I think, I suspect that is something concerning Dara. It's, regards to the drifting events, I don't think they're going to be stopped if there's a lease in place. If it's a legitimate lease, and presently there's no agreed strategy. Therefore, there is no indication of how much funding is required or where, in fact, it will come from. Dara's last annual accounts were significantly delayed and subsequently criticised by the Audit Office for not budgeting for Maboy remediation. That disagreement between the Audit Office and Dara, as far as I'm aware, I don't think it has been resolved. Whilst I agree with the intentions of Councillor Norris and admire the work that he's previously done, I think that within this motion, and for the right reasons, there's an awful lot of grey areas that we need to take cognizance of.
Thank you, Councillor Donnelly. And lastly, Councillor Alex Duffy.
Good Mayor, and just to thank Councillor Norris for bringing this again to the forefront, and it's very important we keep doing this. We've got to keep it this right in front of people's minds, because it's not going to go away until it's rectified. And just to agree with the previous speakers as well, like, this is now an event site. It's absolutely ludicrous that this is allowed to happen. Like, it's lying open. People are going in, having social events like drafting and car meets, and the phone calls, I could say Declan's receiving them as well. It's crazy that this is allowed to continue, and Dara is facilitating it as well. If this is true, that they are aware that these leases are taking place. So they totally agree with the motion in its entirety, and Sohan needs to give, because like, I know even as a boy, and that was not long ago, it's only a short bike ride from Strathfoyle, and we used to go up to it all the time and freely be able to walk about it, and like, it's, I don't know, but thank you, Declan.
Okay, members, no further indicated speakers. Councillor Donnelly, taking on board your concerns, are you still supporting the motion?
Chair, no, I don't think after outlining regard to investment in that, I'm not in a position to support the motion, so I'm going to abstain.
So with the exception of Councillor Donnelly and Councillor Gallagher is abstaining as well, is everyone else happy to support, content to support? Yeah. Okay, so that motion then is passed, and go back.
Can I sum up?
Yeah, I'm going to pass back now to Councillor Norris.
We're on the beat too. Thank you, everybody, for your comments. And as we all know, like as Councillor Duffy said, we're getting phoned all the time about this. Now, just to point out some of the comments from Councillor Donnelly, we've thinking behind this. I never mentioned the drifting or whatever in this motion for many reasons, because he believes he's up there legally. Regardless of all that and the fence and all the rest, the only way to get this sorted out is the DARA to take it in hand. If DARA takes it in hand, whatever means, be it vesting, be it take land, whatever, but they need to take it in hand. The minister needs to step up and take this in control and take over the site. The site is an illegal dump. It's one of the biggest in Europe. It's a disaster and it should be sorted out. No money has been set aside in the budget from what I can see. Now, there could be money set aside somewhere else, but the money doesn't seem to be there. You are right, it wasn't mentioned in the government. So it needs sorted out. And what's our solutions? No, I'm open to solutions. I'm open to our thinking, but it needs to be sorted out. And to me, the only way to sort it out is the minister to step up and get it sorted out once and for all. Get the site closed off, get the CCTV cameras up there, and get the site remediated. Get the consultation. Consultation has been out to everybody. We all attended it. So let's get it to the next stage and let's get it finished. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Councillor Norris. So that brings us on to our next motion, which is from myself. So in line with my own guidance, I'll be very, very brief, but have I got a seconder? Councillor Jackson. Members, the motion is pretty straightforward. It allows the mayor to bestow an individual or organisation with a mayor's medal, and that individual or organisation would be somebody or a group who has made a substantial contribution to the council area, and the award would be at the discretion of each incoming mayor. They don't have to utilise it if they don't wish to, and all the costs would be covered from the mayoral budget. So I'm asking for member support. Thank you. Alderman Hussey.
Thank you, Mayor. I wish to propose an amendment. Amendment would read that Council recalls the recognition policy working group to consider amending its recognition policy. If I have a seconder for that, I'll speak to it.
Okay, Councillor Middleton.
Yeah. Thank you, Mayor. The recognition policy working group finished its work not that long ago, actually. And there were quite a few meetings. Alan was involved in those, in fact, leading that. And we took a lot of time going through the recognition policy, which was then put to council and approved. So I think it would be appropriate if we're considering amending that policy, which has only recently been adopted, that the group would be recalled to consider the suggestion that you have with regard to the mayor medal. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. On the amendment, Councillor Jackson.
Mayor, and as a previous member of the recognition working group, I know the vast range of issues that were considered, and there was a detailed paper brought to committee, and the policy arose from that. This motion is making a small amendment to that, and I suppose in the interest of expediency, because they go through, they re-establish a working group for a very small amendment, would require nominations to the working group. It would require a paper brought back to committee, and it would require endorsement of full council. And Mayor, since this is a motion that's brought by yourself, it's extremely unlikely that those processes could be concluded, or would be pushing it tight towards the end of the term. So in that basis, we will not be supporting the amendment. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Anybody else on the amendment? Councillor Tierney.
Thank you, Mayor. And if you don't mind, I'll speak to the amendment and the original motion from yourself. In relation to the original motion, I think it's a very, very good idea. I think it's fitting that the mayor of the day has that opportunity to recognise an individual or an organisation of their choosing which they see has made a substantial contribution to life in this council area. And I think that is something probably that we have been lacking as a council since we have been formed, but I definitely think it's a good idea. In relation to the amendment, I can understand the rationale around it, but I know people are talking about amending, and I know the motion talks about amending the policy, but we're adding to it. The rest of the policy is going to remain the same, is my understanding. We're going to add an element around a mayor's medal, and from my understanding of it, the addition is on the screen in front of us. It's going to be a mayor's medal at the choosing of the mayor of the day to an individual or an organisation who's made a substantial contribution to life in this council. The budget for that process, medal, and whatever ceremony or whatever that's going to look like is going to come out of the existing mayor's budget. I don't see where the difficulty is or where the policy difficulty around that is. I think it's going to slow things down in terms of how it's going. If we were looking at amending a policy that was amending the existing stuff that's there and looking at the policy as a whole, I would be all for the amendment without a doubt. But the policy that was agreed by the working group is going to remain the same with the inclusion of what's on the screen there. And in that vein, I know Councillor Jackson's talking about the speed in the process. I actually don't see the purpose of going through that process to get everybody together, to provide papers, etc., when we already know what the difference is going to be with the policy after this is adopted. So in that vein, we're happy to support the original proposal and we won't be supporting the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tierney. On the amendment, Councillor Harkin.
Thank you, Mayor. And firstly, on the amendment, because this is it would be a decision made by an individual mayor, I don't see how getting the recognition team, the working group back together will make any difference to it. So I will probably abstain on the proposal, but in terms of the substantive proposal, look, Mayor, I think you've been a very fair one in terms of allocation of time and allowing people to speak their mind in here and not shutting down any discussions unnecessarily. But I don't support the proposal. I think that there are many, many ways right now that this council and the mayor can recognise organisations and individuals. We had a long process to fine-tune our recognition for the freedom of the city, lots of debate, at times difficult discussions that were unfortunate, and also for assets and other things around the council that can be named after people. And that is a democratic process because people will bring a proposal and ultimately it will get support. It's somewhat democratic. So there's also, as a mayor, you can have mayoral receptions, but we can also propose as members a reception for anyone, an individual or an organisation. But I think that there's lots of scope for a mayor to recognise groups. There's the charity, there's all sorts of things. So it just seems to me that while I might like your proposal this year, that you would get to decide on your own, I might not like a proposal somewhere down the line. So there would be very little democracy in the mayor getting to decide who gets a mayoral's medal. And I think that there's already plenty of ways for the mayor and the council to acknowledge the good work of individuals and organisations across the city and the district. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harkin. Councillor Gallagher.
Thank you. I probably come from a very similar position. And when I first seen this, Mayor, I looked at it, it sort of struck me like a very monarchy type of approach, MBE type of approach of medals. When I also looked at it, you know, and coming forward into this chamber, then I looked at it through like the eyes of equality, and it's the mayor's recognition and discretion. I feel that there's a lot of people on here that will never have the opportunity to be a mayor. So that I think that if this was done, looking at it with the eyes of equality, it would be something around a public representative medal, and that there's 40 councillors in this chamber. The potential of giving 10 out a year over the lifetime of the council, and each member as a public representative could get to nominate one person, would be more a way of formally saying there's equality in this proposal. As it is and as it stands, it doesn't do that for me. So I'll not be supporting it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gallagher. Councillor Guy online.
Thanks, Mayor. Sort of agree with the proposal and the amendment, and I'll tell you why. I have always agreed that the freedom of the city should be given for lifetime achievements, right? That's always been my thought. As you well know, our party has that's agreed with a few that have actually been given the freedom of the city. However, anybody that has got it for lifelong events and things that they've done, I've agreed with that there. So just to get on with it, right? So basically, does it infringe on an EQIA ruling that was recently brought up to council as one question, right? And I've always believed that the mayor should be given, I always thought maybe two, a male and a female one for the year. However, this covers a person or an organisation, which I think is fair. And I think it needs to go to the policy working group, because, and that there, Mayor, you state that would be left to the discretion of the mayor of the time. If the mayor coming in behind you decides not to have it, then it's lost. And I do think it's something important that we need to look at. So that's why I think it needs to go into the policy working group. Now, I agree with the previous speaker, Councillor Gallagher there, where, you know, is there going to be a list of maybe 4 or 5 people that you think should be put forward for this? Will 40 members get to vote on that, or is it purely down to the mayor that year? And could that be seen as a wee bit of favouritism too from the mayor? Not that I would ever say that, but it may be looking, you know, I just think that it needs to go in, needs to a lot. I think with this year we could let it go, but I think if it's going to continue, it needs to be set in stone, really. And I think just changing it off the back of a motion and just adding it, I think it takes away the importance of the actual thing. So thanks, Mayor. A lot of questions on it, you know, so thanks.
Thank you, Alderman Guy. And just to clarify, if a subsequent mayor didn't wish to utilise it, well then they wouldn't award the medal, but it would just be another option for them. So just to add that clarification. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor, for letting me in. And I think the concept that you have put forward is a good one where we're recognising people within the community. And my concerns about it is that, you know, we have to pick one person in the community for that medal, do you know what I mean? Where there's maybe multiple deserving charities or organisations. But my other concern would be that, you know, we have seen a 4-year term where there has been no unionist mayor. And, you know, that could be a trend that continues. And, and if it does continue, it is highly unlikely that the people from the PUL community would be recognised. Now, they might well be. I'm not saying it's definitely they won't, but it certainly would be a case that maybe the mayor, who was ever in the role at that particular time, might not know of the work and the achievements of somebody within that other community. So that would be a real concern that we would have. The other concern that we would have is and this is not personal to you, because I know this is coming from a good place where you are looking to recognise somebody for vast achievements. My concern is that if we have a mayor in a different year who may want to recognise somebody that other people would find controversial or whatever, do you know what I mean? I would have that concern that there wouldn't be any scrutiny and around, and certainly not given the opportunity for people to make their views known in regards to that. I do agree with a lot of the speakers saying, that we have a policy in regards to the recognition working group and the recognition policy. I'm quite torn on it because I do agree with your concept, Mayor, but based on the fact that, there potentially would not be a unionist mayor in the future, unless mindsets change in regards to that. I think it, and when we talk about equality screening, I think that we're leaving out a large section of the community who may not have the opportunity to be recognised. So on that vein, and I do believe that you should have the ability to recognise, and there's mechanisms in place in order for you to do that. And we see that coming through the chamber on a monthly basis. And I do believe that a lot of the organisations who come in and have a reception with yourselves, with you, or even myself, do you know what I mean, are highly deserving. And I think that should continue. Do you know what I mean? We should be recognising the achievements of people within our community. I just have that concern. So on that basis, we will be supporting the amendment to bring it back into the working group, but we do have concerns in regards to the substantive motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. And I think it's important to clarify as well that the reason there hasn't been a unionist mayor is because of the outcome of the power sharing formula that has been endorsed democratically by this council. So it's not because of a party or a political decision to exclude PUL community from the position of mayor. We have had deputy mayors as unionists. There hasn't been a unionist mayor this past 4 years, including during my time, but we have recognised achievements right across the city and district, including from the PUL community, and have done so myself, more than happy to have done so. But this particular motion affords the mayor of the time, and I would remind people as well that the current policy doesn't afford a group the recognition of the freedom of the city and district, but this one would allow the mayor to consider an individual or a group, and any subsequent mayor doesn't have to avail of that option if they don't wish to do so. So, any other indicated speaker on the amendment? It has been proposed, and sorry, Councillor Raymond Barr, are you looking at it?
Just briefly, Mayor. I have no problem with it, with the spirit of the motion, but I can see pitfalls in the future in terms of bias, accusations, maybe of favouritism. So for that reason, I would be in support of the amendment. Thank you.
Sorry, Councillor Barr, could you just clarify? I didn't catch what you said there.
I would be in support of the amendment.
Supporting the amendment?
Yeah.
Councillor Mooney.
Chair, thank you for bringing me in. I know Councillor Tierney has spoken our support, and I
I support this motion as well. It's just, it was an interesting debate, the way it sort of transpired. For me, like, I thought would be that this is like a sort of democratic outworking of the hunt itself. The principle that, in this council at the minute, that, obviously whoever's mayor, they're usually most mayors are from the majority party at any one time, and the way it works out. But the way the workings is, and I think I'm trying to express myself in a way that if you're a mayor and you make a decision and give somebody a medal and it's unpopular, that lands on you as the mayor. That's it. As simple as that. There's no equality issue then like that there. If you make a decision and the public don't like it, it lands back on the mayor. It doesn't land back on anybody else in here. So you're hoping at any one stage that a mayor makes a proper decision, but I don't have any issue about equality or things like that there. I think it's like a democratic outworking of the whole process. And as I say, if the mayor makes a decision and it's not popular, then it's up to the mayor at that time. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, members, we'll take the vote on the amendment that has been proposed and seconded. So I'll ask John to take the vote.
Thank you, Mayor. Alderman Cook. On the amendment, members, yeah. Alderman Cook.
For.
Alderman Guy.
Yeah, for the amendment, yeah.
Alderman Hussey.
Or
Alderman Carrigan.
For, John.
Alderman McMorris.
For.
Alderman Middleton.
For.
Alderman Montgomery.
For.
Councillor Jason Barr.
For, John.
Councillor Lillian Barr. Councillor Raymond Barr.
For.
Councillor Boggs.
Neil on the amendment, John.
Councillor Boyle.
Against.
Councillor Clark.
Neil.
Councillor Cusick. Councillor Devine.
Neil.
Councillor Donnelly.
Abstain.
Councillor Alex Duffy.
Neil.
Councillor Sandra Duffy.
Neil.
Councillor Farrell.
Against.
Councillor Fleming. Councillor Gallagher. Councillor Harkin. Councillor Hart.
Neil.
Councillor Heaney.
Neil.
Councillor Hutton. Councillor Jackson.
Neil.
Councillor Leonard.
Neil.
Councillor Logue.
Against.
Councillor McDade.
Against.
Councillor McGinley. Councillor McGowan.
Neil.
Councillor McHugh.
Neil.
Councillor Mooney. Councillor Murphy.
Neil.
Councillor Norris. Councillor O'Farrell.
Neil.
Councillor Riley.
Against?
Councillor Tierney. Councillor Neelis.
Neil.
Thank you, members. Members, through you, Mayor, I've recorded 11 for the amendment, 3 abstentions and 23 against, so the amendment falls.
Okay, thanks for that, John. And that brings us back then to the substantive motion. I had Alderman Hussey speak on it. I think Councillor Jackson spoke on it. Is there any other member wishes to speak on the substantive motion? No, so we'll take a vote, John.
Thank you. Alderman Cook.
Abstain.
Alderman Guy.
Abstain.
Alderman Hussey.
Abstain.
Alderman Carrigan.
Abstain, John.
Alderman McMorris.
Abstain.
Alderman Middleton.
Abstain.
Alderman Montgomery.
Abstain.
Councillor Jason Barr.
For.
Councillor Raymond Barr.
Abstain.
Councillor Boggs.
John.
Councillor Boyle.
Or.
Councillor Clark. Councillor Cusick.
For.
Councillor Devine. Councillor Donnelly.
Against.
Councillor Alex Duffy. Councillor Sandra Duffy. Councillor Farrell.
For.
Councillor Gallagher. Councillor Harkin.
Against.
Councillor Hart. Councillor Heaney. Councillor Hutton. Councillor Jackson. Councillor Leonard. Councillor Logue.
Or.
Councillor McDaid. Councillor McGinley. Councillor McGowan. Councillor McHugh. Councillor Mooney. Councillor Murphy. Councillor Norris. Councillor O'Farrell. Councillor Riley. Councillor Tierney and Councillor Nelis. Thank you, members. Mayor, I've recorded 26 for, 3 against and 8 abstentions, so the substantive motion passes.
Okay, just want to thank those who supported the motion. So that motion has passed, and which brings us then to our next motion, and that's from Alderman Middleton. The seconder there. Alderman Cook, go ahead, Julie.
Thank you, Mayor, and I'll take the motion as read. Today I'm going to speak about heart health, and I'm going to speak from my whole heart, albeit a heart that carries around broken pieces following the untimely and completely unexpected death of my daddy, Cyril Davis, aged just 57. Daddy died suddenly, and he was presenting as fit and healthy, aside from a sore shoulder, a symptom that I didn't know was a cardiac symptom. It presented the day before his death, and we spoke in length about it, he and I. I asked Daddy, would he go to the doctors? And Daddy said, no, it was muscle strain. My daddy worked a very manual job. If I could turn back time, I think I'd have dragged him to the doctors, but that just wasn't to be my daddy's story. So he did decline the doctors because he also didn't know it was a cardiac symptom. When Daddy died, amidst the grief and the shock, I promised that for the rest of my life, I would do all that I could to spread the word on cardiac health. I never want any person or family to have to go through what my family and I did. February is Heart Health Month, a time for sharing and educating others on cardiac health and the very real, life-changing and life-limiting consequences associated with cardiac heart issues. Upon speaking with Northern Ireland Chest, Heart and Stroke, an organisation devoted to supporting, educating, fundraising and researching chest, heart and stroke conditions, I learnt that there are as many as 470,000 people in Northern Ireland living with chest, heart and stroke conditions. And I was devastated to learn that there are an estimated 120,000 people in Northern Ireland today walking around with high blood pressure with no symptoms, and they're completely unaware that they have high blood pressure. This made me feel devastated, as this is treatable, but left untreatable can be catastrophic. Today, I am asking our council and all of you colleagues to share social media posts and advice on cardiac health to those you are speaking to in February and beyond, if you please. I think working together on this, we could potentially save someone's life within our district, and actually maybe more than one life. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Middleton. And would your seconder like to? No. Councillor Farrell.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, and thank you to Alderman Middleton for the proposal. And I'm really, really sorry to hear about your father and his preventable death. So I think everybody's acutely aware of the prevalence of cardiovascular conditions right across our city and district. And we acknowledge the vital and sterling work that Northern Ireland Chest, Heart and Stroke does on a daily basis. And we fully agree that prevention is better than cure. So we do believe that there should be enhanced collaboration between our council and that organisation, specifically around communication and messaging, to get people to make better lifestyle choices and to identify early warning signs when it comes to conditions that could have massive, massive health impacts further in life. So happy to support the proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Farrell. Next indicated speaker is Councillor Logue.
Thank you, Mayor, and I want to thank Alderman Middleton for bringing this motion. First of all, I want to congratulate the the Chest, Heart and Stroke organisation. They were first formed in 1946 and this year is going to mark their 80th anniversary. And that figure too of 470,000 people living with chest, heart or stroke condition is staggering, and there are many, many people out there who are undiagnosed. The care and support that this organisation have given to many, many people who have these conditions, their families and their friends is invaluable. And I do think that it would be good to have them in this chamber to, I suppose, educate us as councillors so that we can pass on the work that they do and signpost people to their services. I would also like to acknowledge the work that they do regarding vaping, and we all know that the jury's still out on the implications that vaping has. And I do recall that as a mayor's initiative, I had the Bogside and Brandwell Health Forum host a conference on here and invited all school teachers and school children, and they were really very happy to get some advice regarding this. So I do think that any support that community groups and schools can get from organisations such as the Chest, Heart and Stroke would be really, really beneficial for especially, but not alone, but to our young people. So I just want to thank the organisation for the work that they do. And I think you mentioned bringing them on the chamber. Oh no, is it? But I do think it would be good if they did come on to the chamber to present to this council, given the numbers of people that we have who have conditions. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Councillor Luke. Alderman Montgomery.
Thank you, Mayor. And I just want to thank Alderman Middleton for bringing this motion forward. Promoting health is always important, but most important is the heart. Having recently discovered a heart defect in my husband's side of the family that lay undiagnosed for so long, my own children are now on a watch under the paediatrics in Altnagalvin. So I feel promoting and educating what the work that Chest, Heart and Stroke do can help save lives. And I'd be more than happy to have them in here at the chamber to educate us on what they do. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Montgomery. Councillor Harkin.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to Alderman Middleton for bringing in this proposal. I think it's an important one. The British Heart Foundation has said that we are at a ticking time bomb when it comes to heart health. Somewhere in the region of 350 families every month loses a loved one here in the north to a stroke or a heart attack. And a lot of these deaths are preventable. So I think that a lot more can be done in terms of raising awareness. And very sorry to hear about your father as well. A lot more can be done to raise awareness. And I think that we have to invest in prevention because that's the key thing. We look at the health inequalities reports for our district and we see that, you know, so many people are dying and struggling with conditions unnecessarily. And it's about what we invest in. And we can actually change these things and give many more people a better life and a longer life and a better quality of life. So I think anything that we can do, engaging with the experts around these questions, to then influence policy and also raise awareness will be very, very worthwhile. So thank you for the motion today.
Thanks for that, Councillor Harkin. Members have no other indicated speakers. Sorry. Sorry, Keith. Just seeing you online there. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mayor. We'll be very brief. I do thank Julie very much for bringing forward the motion, and she spoke passionately in regards to her father, and it is so important, as I say, in regards to the chest, heart and stroke, in regards to defibrillators, and there are so many courses that are run now as well in regards to the use of these, and just as it is presently, there currently is the British Heart Foundation do have applications which are open, expected maybe to close in February at some stage, for a free defibrillator, which can be secured to your various community groups or community buildings throughout. And I know that we have a number of them secured to, particularly in our rural area, Mayor. You know, I'm going to go along the lines of, I have a number of the Orange Halls in our area and a number of the churches as well who have availed of these for the benefit of the entire community. And again, there are various sports grounds as well. So as I say, the defibrillators are available. There's applications still available there. As I say, the British Heart Foundation have that currently open. So if there are anyone or you know of groups throughout the area, be it in the city or throughout the district, those are available there to avail of. So just to concur that, but just to fully support Alderman Middleton's proposal, and thank you for letting me in, Mayor.
Thank you, Alderman Kerrigan and Alderman McMorris.
Sorry, thank you. I'm not going to drag this out because I know Julie has eloquently, passionately spoke about her father. As somebody whose father also died at the age of 43, I know only too well the catastrophic effects that heart attacks and have on families. You know, unfortunately, awareness wasn't just the same then as what it is now, and we do see a lot of defibrillators around community centres and church buildings and even out in the public from in front of shops and all. So I think it's a great idea that Patricia brought forward that we bring chest, heart and stroke people into the chamber, and anything that we can do to raise awareness for this catastrophic thing about hearts and strokes. I think we should be doing everything we can, but thank you. And yeah, do you need a proposal for to bring them in for the thing, or could that just be form part? Right, thank you.
Councillor Farrell, all right.
Thank you very much for letting me in. But I just want to agree with what everybody has been saying, but from a personal point of view, I'd like to praise the work that goes on in our communities as well. There's free health checks there, and I have to say I avail of them. I had no idea I had high blood pressure. I'm now on tablets for it. I have high cholesterol, I have diabetes, but I wouldn't have known any of that stuff without the work that's been done by the community groups with free access to, and it is free, the whole lot's free, and I couldn't praise them high enough. So listen, Goromaya Gravera, thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Farrell. Members, we'll take that motion as unanimously passed. Okay. So that takes us to our final. Sorry, Alderman, chance to sum up there.
Thank you, Mayor. Just very briefly, I didn't mention, but I do want to pay tribute to the paramedic who worked on my daddy the day that he passed away. He actually worked on daddy for 45 minutes and refused to let anybody take over. I never got to meet him, but I'm hopeful that some one of these times when I say it, it'll fall to him. So I'm really, really thankful for the compassion and love and effort he put into trying to bring daddy back to life. It just wasn't meant to be. Thank you all so much for your support and your warmth. Although there's times in here where we disagree, I care very deeply about each and every one of you, and I don't want any of you to have any health issues either, so I would appeal to you all to get your checks done also. My dad was very, very shy and very humble. He would be embarrassed to think that I was throwing his name about, but this is for my daddy, Sir Earl Davis, and I know the man that he is, even though he would be really embarrassed, he would be so proud of me for bringing this forward, but he would also equally be so proud of each and every one of you for your act of love and care for all the people of our district today. Thank you.
Thank you, Julian. And as you say, I'm sure he's very proud of his daughter. So, members, we'll move on to our last motion to be moved by Councillor Harkin. Seconder there, Councillor Raymond Barr, seconded.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, it's difficult to know where to start in terms of making the case for this motion. But I do agree with Martin Luther King Jr.'s statement that his own government was the greatest purveyor of violence in the world. And I think that Donald Trump's actions are making that very, very clear, that the US government is a danger to people across this planet. The invasion of Venezuela, the abduction of their president and his partner, his wife, and taking them to the United States, I believe, is an unacceptable act. I think it was unacceptable that the British government, instead of condemning the violation of Venezuelan sovereignty and calling out Donald Trump's illegal action in violation of international law, tried to pass over it and talk about the illegitimacy of the president. And the Irish government, unfortunately, did the same. It's up to the Venezuelan people to determine who their president is. It's not up to Donald Trump. And it's become very clear in the days afterwards that Donald Trump does not care about the Venezuelan people. And the American government has never cared about the Venezuelan people. What they care about is the fact that Venezuela has the greatest oil reserves on the planet. And Donald Trump has said that openly. So this is not an intervention to bring more democracy. It is an intervention to put the United States in charge of the affairs of Venezuela. And it's a disgrace, frankly, that the British government and the Irish government weren't able to openly condemn this. So I think our council needs to show leadership and call on them to say what is true, which is that this was a violation of Venezuela's sovereignty, it was a violation of international law, and that Donald Trump should release Nicolas Maduro and his wife and allow them to go back to Venezuela. I think it's also unacceptable for Irish politicians, north and south, to be travelling to the White House for St. Patrick's Day this year, when Trump has done this to Venezuela, has threatened to invade Greenland, has threatened war in Iran, has threatened war in Canada, has threatened Colombia, Mexico, you name it, one government after another. And he's also now has his agents from ICE gunning down people on the streets of the United States. On March 17th, the Trump administration plans to put Nicolas Maduro on trial in Brooklyn. That's the same day that our representatives would be in the White House having a party with Donald Trump. I think the idea of this is completely unacceptable. So I think we should, as a council, call on all political representatives not to go to the White House, not to engage with Donald Trump's government. There's lots of people who are our friends in the United States, lots of people who are our allies. Most of those people are protesting the warmongering that Donald Trump is doing across the world and has condemned his actions in Venezuela, and are also protesting the actions of ICE in city after city across the United States. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Harkin, and your seconder, Councillor Barr.
Thank you, Chair. The smash and grab in Venezuela, motivated by greed and camouflaged by a moral objective, has been justifiably condemned worldwide. Trump's on a roll now, issuing threats against the countries named in Councillor Harkin's motion. The sanctions on Cuba, as before, will cause serious hardship on civilians. The moral reasoning Trump offered for his attack in Venezuela contrasts sharply with the immoral support supplied to Israel to perpetuate a genocide on men, women and children and expose them as the hypocrite he is. He is fast creating a world with no rules, vulnerable and full of uncertainty and fear. I fully support the call for a complete boycott on the White House on St. Patrick's Day, and thank Councillor Harkin for bringing the motion. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Barr. Councillor Cusick.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to Councillor Harkin. Look, as a councillor, I try to keep a focus on local issues and matters within this council responsibility and influence, but where do you start with Trump? And more importantly, where does it end? Every day is another assault on democracy. It's worrying that this unbelievably despicable, cruel, inhumane, but powerful man wield so much control over global affairs, and that includes us. And I need to be careful because I might have broken the councillor code there, or with these descriptors, or he might even sue me, God forbid. What's even more concerning is the mentality of those who trust and support him, particularly people and parties here, and we need to change that. Personally, I condemn every vile action of this individual, and while I will never be back on American soil until he is gone, I feel it is imperative that our leaders here do not indulge, legitimise or endorse him on a day that celebrates the best of Ireland and the best of the Irish. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cusack. Councillor Murphy.
The US assault against Venezuelan national sovereignty and the illegal removal of the Venezuelan president from office deserves universal condemnation. Whatever one's opinion of President Maduro, there can be no doubt that over the past 12 months there has been an unprecedented attack and undermining of international law. Thinly veiled threats aimed at other sovereign nations have contributed to a sense of fear in Latin America and the Caribbean region. Imperialism, colonialism, and the theft of resources from sovereign nations is as wrong now as it has been throughout history. The 26 county government yesterday confirmed that it will be attending the US and other countries to mark St. Patrick's Day. We can only hope that they convey the feelings of the Irish people around the role that the current US administration is playing in creating global instability through its actions in Latin America, the Middle East, and Europe. We are supportive of the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Murphy. And Councillor Catherine McDade.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to Councillor Harkin for bringing the motion. It goes to the heart of what kind of world we're willing to accept that we're going to live in. Is it going to be one that's ruled by force, intimidation, or one that's ruled by law? In the SLP, we completely agree with Councillor Harkin's motion. We condemn the military assault in Venezuela and the abduction of its president, because no matter what terrible things the man has done, no actions can go unchallenged like that. It does not give Donald Trump the right to go and abduct him from his country. And if we let this be unchallenged, it tears at the very foundations of international law. A sovereign nation has the right to determine its own future, free from any kind of intervention from foreign military. When that principle is violated, it's not just Venezuela that's threatened, it's every other smaller nation as well. We can't let this go unchallenged. History teaches us that imperial aggression is never confined to one country. It always spreads and escalates, and it's always justified afterwards. There's always an excuse of security or legal or morality. And we've seen similar justifications already being used in Gaza and in Ukraine, so we know what the human cost is after it. It's right that we're alarmed at the pattern now of the military threats at Iran and Greenland and the other countries, and they will continue to build. There'll be more and more of them because they're not isolated. This is like a very dangerous willingness to normalise coercion. And every time I turn on the news or lift my phone to scroll, it just feels as if the world is getting more and more scary. I also would urge everyone to think about the normal people who live in these countries, the families and workers who are going to bear the consequences of all this. I would urge everyone across this chamber to put themselves in their shoes and to think about what they are going to have to face on a daily basis. This motion matters. Writing letters is not just a symbolic gesture, it's a statement of principle. We're asking for very basics. We're just asking for international law to be respected, for the release of President Maduro, and for a commitment to diplomacy. And again, calling on Irish representatives to refuse to attend the White House is symbolic, but it's also a powerful show of strength. I'm proud that within the SLP, our current leader and her predecessor have been very clear. We'll not celebrate and drink Guinness with any president that's complicit in genocide and the breaches of international law, whether that was Joe Biden when he was president, and now that Donald Trump has taken over the reins. Silence in moments like this is not neutrality. Abstaining is not neutrality, it's complicity. By supporting this motion, we're choosing peace over aggression, and we will continue to support motions like this, and I'd urge everyone else to do the same. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McDade. And I have Alderman Kerrigan online.
Thank you very much, Mayor, for allowing me on. Mayor, I see with the motion put forward, and again, some of the issues there that are raised there, and particularly the actions of President Trump there, are concerning, particularly at the minute in regards to as activity seeking out Greenland and potentially with the resources there. and using it under a national security banner. But Mayor, I have issues there because we have had this is our eighth motion. I'm not going to prolong the thing. We've had good motions there earlier in this meeting here, which we can do and which can impact the lives of residents of our city and district, such as Alderman Middleton's regarding the chest, heart and stroke, such as Councillor Devine's regarding work to Clitter Forest. But this is a motion which, again, we have no control or power over. This is way above our pay grade, if you want to use it in that terminology. And again, there are, yes, President Trump has went and has taken President Maduro and has taken him to the US and is looking to charge him there. There is a lot of impact in regards to President Maduro's record himself was not good. But in this regard, Mayor, we have had discussed it amongst ourselves, and we will not be in a position to support this. I feel that we will be abstaining on this occasion. But thank you very much, Mayor, for the opportunity to come in.
Thank you, Councillor Kerrigan. Councillor Donnelly.
Chair, I'm going to be abstaining on this motion too, and I'll try to explain why. It's not because I'm in any way a Trump supporter. For some people in the past, they'll say, if you don't vote against this, then you're, but I think it's the issues that I would have is we're effectively asking Starmer and the Free Staters to condemn violations of sovereignty when we look at our own island, our own country. Sovereignty's been violated. To defy anybody, they counteract that. There's a two-tier. In my opinion, Trump is no different from Obama or NM. He's just more brash and out there, more stupid in a lot of ways. The others were more crafty in their imperialism and every bit as lethal. We talk about Russia, and I want to see the end of the NATO-Russian war, but I think that war could have been prevented. That war could have been prevented if NATO had have kept the promises post-Cold War and stopped expanding. They're right up in Russia's backyard. 14 years, Ukraine bombed Donetsk, bombed Russian-speaking areas, burnt dozens of trade unionists alive in a union building, and as they tried to escape, shot them down. The Azov brigades, openly neo-Nazi. The Canadian Parliament, a man and woman standing, giving a standing ovation to a real-life SS officer simply because he killed Russians. What kind of world are we living in? When Starmer was asked about initially the Russian attack, he says it was a war crime because they targeted electricity and water. But yet, when that was put about Palestine, it's not a war crime. There is a duplicity here that is shocking. I don't expect the Free Staters or Starmer to in any way take anything from this, and asking them to condemn it is, in my opinion, futile. I get the sentiment of Councillor Harkin's motion. I understand that, but I think that just asking these people, and I think the Staters will be there, other unscrupulous politicians will be there, but I think the people in this chamber, the parties, have an option whether they want to disassociate themselves from that. And you know, the problem in the world in a minute is greed, it's capitalism. One of the previous speakers spoke about all the issues that we're facing, the heart issues, the hospitals and the schools and all of that. Stop war. Stop pumping billions of pounds into killing people and redirect that money into schools, education, health, and then we won't have the problems that we have. Or am I?
Thank you, Councillor Donnelly. No other further indicated speakers, members, so I'm going to ask John to take the vote. Sorry, for Councillor Harkin to sum up.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll be as brief as I can. Thank you, everybody, for their support on the issue.
Sum up after the vote.
No, it's before.
Go ahead, sorry, Councillor Harkin.
No problem, it's grand. Yeah, look, thank everybody who spoke in favour of the motion. In terms of look, I think it's important for our council to play a leadership role on sometimes on international issues. And if that means that there's disagreements, this is a democratic space. And I think that that's, people are watching what we're doing. People have opinions about what we're doing. I don't think that the British government or the Irish government, Stormont, done enough in response to what Trump did. And James Connolly once argued that when tyrants go unchallenged, it emboldens them. So I think that we have to take every opportunity to challenge tyrants and bullies. And there is no doubt that Donald Trump is a bully. So I think we should be challenging him. In terms of Gary and Councillor Donnelly's concerns, look, I think what Trump has done has exposed the fact that Donald Trump doesn't care about Ukraine. What Donald Trump cares about in Ukraine is the rare earth minerals that Ukraine has. This is what he has said that he wants. He wants access and control over Ukraine's resources. And there is a war that's happening between the United States and NATO and Russia. And Ukraine is a proxy for that war. And I think that the Ukrainian government has allowed itself now to be used by the US government and NATO to fight Russia. It's possible that the war could have been avoided between Russia and Ukraine. I think that the NATO definitely played a role in escalating tensions between Russia and the Ukraine. I think Ukraine has the right to self-determination, despite what its government's doing and despite what NATO is doing. But I think that the key thing there is we want to see a de-escalation and end of that war. I don't think Donald Trump really cares about the number of Ukrainians or Russians that die. I think it's very clear that, similar to Venezuela, the United States wants control of resources, and that is about profits for American corporations. That is about power and dominance. And I think, as Councillor Cusack said, Donald Trump is taking the world in a much more dangerous direction. He is driving the world towards war. And I think it's important that we, as a council, speak out. I think it's important that Irish representatives use their ability to not go to the White House to send a message in solidarity with people across the world. It's disappointing that Fianna Fáil and Fianna Gael are going to be there in large numbers, but I think that we should continue to criticise them and expose their complicity with what's happening in Gaza and their failure to stand up to Donald Trump. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Harkin. And I ask John to take the vote, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Alderman Cook,
Abstain.
Alderman Guy, Alderman Hussey, Alderman Carrigan,
Abstain, John.
Alderman McMorris,
Abstain.
Alderman Middleton,
Abstain.
Alderman Montgomery, Councillor Jason Barr,
Or
Councillor Raymond Barr, Councillor Boggs, Councillor Boyle,
For.
Councillor Clark, Councillor Cusack,
Or.
Councillor Devine, Councillor Donnelly, Councillor Alex Duffy, Councillor Sandra Duffy, Councillor Farrell,
For.
Councillor Fleming, Councillor Gallagher, Councillor Harkin, Councillor Hart, Councillor Heaney, Councillor Hutton, Councillor Jackson, Councillor Leonard, Councillor Logue,
Or.
Councillor McDade,
Or.
Councillor McGinley, Councillor McGowan, Councillor McHugh, Councillor Mooney, Councillor Murphy, Councillor Norris, Councillor Farrell, Councillor Riley, Councillor Tierney, Councillor Neelis. And I'm also recording Councillor Lillian Barr for, apologies. Councillor Lillian, I didn't see you there.
Mayor,
Thank you.
sorry, I didn't hear my name being called, but I'm tapped.
Sorry, I have you. Thank you. Thank you. Recorded 26 for, no one against and 6 abstentions, so the motion passes. Thank you.
Okay, members, so that motion passes. Members, item 14 is the ceiling list. Any member wish to raise anything under the ceiling list? No. Item 15 or 15 to 16. Sorry, Councillor Harkin, you raising on the ceiling list?
No.
Item 15, responses to motions.
Thank
Go
you, Mayor.
ahead.
Yeah, very briefly on issue, it's 2.6, and this was the letter that we wrote to the Education Minister about whether or not there was an equality screening done in regard to the 20% hike in the cost of school meals. Now, the Education Minister wrote back to say it's the Education Authority chief who is responsible for that, and he wrote to say that they did carry out an equality screening. So I went to check on this equality screening. Now, it was completed on...
Members, please. Go ahead, Councillor Harkin.
The equality screening, as per the website, says that it was completed on the 17th of December 2025. He is writing a letter in response to us, on the 10th of December. The announcement about the hike was made on November 5th. So I have asked to see this equality screening because it's not available unless you ask for it. But I just think it's very, very odd that we are getting an equality screening that happens seemingly after the announcement. And I'm not saying it came in response to our council's letter, but that the dates for me don't match up. So this is a very odd scenario where did they do the equality screening after they made the announcement and after they made the decision? My understanding is that equality screenings are supposed to happen before something is enacted. And if there's a problem with a policy, that it would be challenged. So when I get a copy of this report, I will update the council, but I think that this is something that members are probably interested in because I know people across the district were furious about this, and I'm sure Councillor McDade's motion came off the back in some part of this decision by the department. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Harkin. Any other member with responses to motions? Oh, if there's 2 items for AOB, item 16, the first of which is Alderman Kerrigan. Go ahead,
Thank you
Alderman.
very much. Thank you very much, Mayor, and I'll be very brief. I do apologise, this should have been in under Chairperson's business, but I would just personally like to congratulate Alderman McMorris, who was awarded a BEM in the New Year's Honours, and I should have had that through yourself, Mayor, at the start of the meeting. So that's better late than never, but just to congratulate her on her receiving that honour. Thank you very much, Mayor.
Okay, Alderman, and second bit of AOB is Councillor Jackson.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. And at the very start of this meeting, under Chairperson's business, there was the discussion around the sectarian attack in the waterside, and I was heartened to see the broad condemnation of a despicable act from this chamber. But I think it's an important one. So given the endorsement from all the political parties and none of the condemnation of, say, a sectarian attack on a family, it's an important statement, and I don't want, I suppose, requesting or suggesting that there be a press statement really released highlighting our complete opposition to sectarianism, opposition to the attack that was carried out, and endorsed by all members of this council, because it's a strong statement and it's an important one. So it's a suggestion more than anything, given the very positive comments and the leadership that was shown by all those that spoke under Chair's business.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sensing there'll be nobody in opposition to that. Councillor Gallagher.
Chair, I'm just be careful, and from a council point of view, that it could take up all of his time, all day, every day, issuing press statements around condemnation of everything, or the council falls into a position where it prioritises one event over another event. And we have, and just as a caution, I'm not entirely against it, but we have to be careful that, you know, that those shout the loudest get addressed, and those that don't, it goes underneath and goes underneath the radar, and then they say, this council didn't offend me. So I think it needs to be a bit more thought out than just saying we start issuing condemnation and then where do we stop? That's you know, the back end. Where do we stop, and who gets put in and who gets left out?
Yeah, we can genericize it, you know, we don't have to tailor it to one individual thing, you know. Yeah. Go ahead, Councillor Harkin.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, Mayor. Look, I understand where Councillor Jackson's coming from. I think it is significant that we were all very critical of what happened in the condemnation of sectarianism. I think that the words that councillors and aldermen said on here, hopefully that will be covered if there's any members of the press that are interested in this, because they should be, because it's significant. Rather than debate over whether or not we're going to have a press statement, which I think we would, there's things I would like to see in a press statement that maybe others wouldn't, because I think that the issue of sectarianism is a fish rots from the head and Stormont is the head, and there's people in Stormont right now, unfortunately, that are whipping up sectarianism and punching down and scapegoating, and this, then you have acts like this one that are carried out, or attacks on migrants or attacks on trans people. So what I would suggest is, Mayor, I think that it seems to me that you would be well placed to send a letter of solidarity to the family, offering whatever council support that would be possible in terms of the next steps for them, because we know that they've been told that they're not going to be able to move out of this house quickly, because it has adoptions in there for their child. But the idea that they're going to be stuck in this house for a long time while they're living in fear is not acceptable. So I think that, like, Mayor, I would support a letter from you, because then we don't have to all agree what the content of that is, but it's basically offering our support, and you can express the will of the council was to say that this was an awful act, and that that wasn't supported and condemned in the council. I would be happy with that rather than a council press statement.
Thank you, Councillor Harkin. Councillor Duffy.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm actually a wee bit disappointed. I think that as a council, we have put out many statements condemning acts of racism, ending violence against women and girls. We put out lots of statements condemning these acts. I think that a clear statement from this council condemning an act of sectarianism is the very least that we could be doing as a council. We have stood at many rallies, we have stood in here, and we have voiced our opposition to sectarianism. We have a very public display of sectarianism in the city over the last number of days. We've had a very public, unanimous opposition to it here within this chamber across all parties and none. And I think that it would be a more powerful statement to put out that joint statement condemning in a general way sectarianism in full, rather than now a message going out to say that we can't even agree on a statement. I think that's a wee bit damaging now at this stage. I think that we are clear that we oppose sectarianism, we oppose racism, and I think that it's a good statement that we could be putting out as a city and district.
Councillor Jackson.
I suppose it was just to make that point there in relation to the disappointment of the comments. I was hoping that we could leave the meeting on a high note and send a unanimous voice from this chamber that sectarianism is wrong. It was, and based on the comments that was made on their chair's business, but if that can't be achieved, I think we've got potential to send the wrong message, and that's and that is deeply disappointing. So I actually regret making the proposal, given the comments that were made. I hoped for better, but I'll live in there.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Councillor Tierney.
Mayor, thank you. And while I understand the sentiment and the message that it would send out to those responsible, I don't think a press statement by committee would be any way easy to achieve. I also don't want the message going out or being carried in the press that the council argued over whether we were going to make a press statement, because that's the way it looks as if it's going to go. I would support Mayor, I would support absolutely the letter coming from yourself to the family, offering whatever practical support we can, because that family who are living in that house and have basically, as I understand it, and I've listened to the mother on the radio this morning, have no other option because of the adaptations that have been made in that house, other to move the child away from a house that's been adapted to suit their needs, or continue living in a place where they're not safe. I think that family would appreciate more from this council in terms of practical help and how we can go about that. Anybody, and there's plenty of people in this chamber, unfortunately, whose home has been attacked. It's not a nice place to be. It's certainly not a nice place to be when you've got young children. And practical help, I believe, might be a wee bit better than a public statement, whilst I understand the sentiments around it. The last point that I would make on it, Mayor, we have a very, very well-placed and skilled press team. Let's see what their view is on it. And my view on it would be the Mayor speaks on behalf of the council. And that's the way I believe that the council should be speaking to the wider public. But I believe that offering practical help to that family at this incredibly difficult time is a lot better than us arguing here over whether we're going to do a press statement or not. Thank you.
Councillor Harkin, go ahead.
Yeah, look, briefly, I don't think disappointment is the right reaction. If there had been a proposal when we were discussing this earlier today, in terms of that one we could actually agree on, I would have been happy to support it. But we were somewhat told or suggested that we not do proposals or motions out of the minutes or out of the in chair's business. So there wasn't a proposal, unfortunately. So it's not about unwillingness to back something if somebody had proposed it. But I think the thing is, I'd be happy to draft something right now if people want to wait. But I don't know if they do. Institute are playing Derry tonight, and maybe some people are planning to go to the match. But I think I'm absolutely confident that the Mayor would be able to put a letter together that would reflect the sentiment of the council today and our anger at this sectarian attack and our support for the family and an offer of whatever help we can bring.
Councillor Donnelly.
Chair, just to put on record so there's no ambiguity, I agree with the previous speaker and Councillor Gallagher and strangely, Councillor Tierney. Look, I am somewhat surprised at Councillor Jackson being surprised that it was unanimous. Who in here would endorse sectarianism? It's a given. Now, there is a sectarian system here. No way we get rid of sectarianism is break down them structures. But you can, oppose what Councillor Jackson say. Same way I didn't support the motion on my boy. Doesn't mean to say I don't want to see it being remediated. I didn't support Councillor Harkin's decision or motion on Venezuela, and that doesn't mean to say I'm happy with what happened there. But I think that what was outlined by the previous three speakers is proper and the way to go. Very much.
Okay, members. Sorry, Alderman McMorris.
Sorry, thanks for letting me in. I suppose is well known my condemnation of the attack on that family. I have done news, radio interviews, and so irrespective of whether a letter goes out, a statement goes out, or whatever, I think it's appropriate that we mark that any sectarian attack is unwanted or unneeded. Do you know what I mean? And I'm not trying to single out this family or anything else, you know what I mean? But I do think it is appropriate that we come from a collective voice, that we are condemning all acts of sectarianism, and whether that be just today, one side or the other side or whatever, you know, and we stand by that. Now, I don't really mind if there's a statement or a letter or anything that goes out. All I can say, and I'll say this publicly and I'll say this privately to whoever, and I have been contacted by loads of members of the community, some of them who are basically saying that there's two sides to the story, there's a whole lot. But no matter what you hear, it comes back down to the fact that this family have been attacked in their home. They have 3 small children. They have a child in palliative care. And I don't care what your views or your opinions is or whatever, we have to stand united and call this out. I certainly, from my point of view, I have called it out from the very minute that I learned of it. I went straight to the family home, and I don't mind putting my name to anything that condemns any attack. And I just think it's bad taste when we're referring to the fact that we need to leave to get a football match or whatever. Do you know what I mean? When this family are sitting at home devastated, and basically their lives has been put under turmoil. And I just think, you know, if we're not going to agree to it, that's fair enough. But like, let's not undermine the serious situation that this family are feeling. And I just wanted to put that on record, Mayor. Thanks for letting me in.
Okay, members, just to confirm that on the back of myself bringing it up under chair's business, that I'm content that a letter would go from the council and highlighting in it that the unanimous view of the council on our anti-sectarianism. So, okay, members, that concludes the meeting, but past the normal time, but thanks for your assistance. Thanks to Teresa for the chocolates.